Have you ever had a hole-in-one?
No.
Oh man.
Few moments later.
Oh, please get up.
Yeah.
Oh. Today, my guest is Cassie Hawrysh. She's a Manitoban turned Albertan. She's a retired skeleton pilot turned biomechanical robot pilot. She's an amazing conversationalist turned public speaker and live commentator. And she was a stranger who turned into a friend. Here's something I need some clarity on.
Sure.
So how did you go from like racing a 200-pound sled at like what? Is it like 80 miles an hour?
60-pound sled. So clear.
What?
Yeah, they're super light.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought they were heavy.
Nope. Well, I mean, they're still heavy. They're metal and fiberglass for skeleton.
Right.
But it's 29.
The internet lied to me. Oh, maybe it was saying 200 including the human.
Maybe. Yeah, that's probably more likely. Yeah, the sled itself is 29.5 for the women.
Okay.
Kilos.
Right.
So mine was about 60 pounds. And yes, so 200 pounds together.
And then how fast?
Then about 140 kilometers per hour would be 141 was the fastest I ever got going in Whistler. Everywhere else is like we average about 125.
Right.
Is a pretty consistent speed when you know what you're doing.
So how'd you go from that to piloting like a 9,000-pound exo
Right, skeleton
thing
Yeah.
from
What is it?
Skynet?
It's not a robot. The internet.
The interwebs.
Yeah, the Twitter. Jay Ingram, if you remember, the host of Daily Planet for a very long time.
Okay.
Him and I met at an event 3-4 years ago, and that was that. And then we'd connected, but hadn't ever like chatted much. And then one day he randomly reached out to me this year and said, "Cassie, there's this thing I want you to see. I think you'd be good at it." And I thought, "Yeah." That was that. So I read the article and wrote the email to the creator, and I was like, "Okay, so you guys are looking for athletes to do this? I'm not competing anymore, but I'm pretty athletic. Let's see what happens." So I did. So
And like, what is it?
So it's literally a giant exoskeleton. So it
Yeah.
has to have a human inside of it to move it.
Yeah.
And it has 4 legs.
Yeah. It's kind of like like the non-military version of the things on like Avatar.
Yes, to some extent. You're in the middle of it, and like the best way to describe it is like if you were a human or like an ape kind of, you're standing like this. So like the outside legs are controlled by the pilot's arms.
Yeah.
And the inside legs are controlled by the pilot's legs, and you're sitting on a bike seat. And like whatever you do, so if I move this leg, it's the mech's inside leg.
Right.
And if I move this arm, it's the outside arm.
Huh.
But it doesn't. But their elbows are all jointed. They're all jointed like an elbow. They're not bent like a knee.
Right.
So everything's sitting like this,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So when you have to try and figure out how to like proprioceptively figure out
Yeah. Yeah.
where am I in space, which
Right.
is very much like skeleton, because you have to, whatever your body does, the sled will do, and the sled is fixed in that case. So it was still, there's this weird disconnect. So that disconnect that I learned through that is this disconnect in a whole other world.
So, and then like, what is the show about, or like, what are?
So their goal, this took them like 15 years to create this thing, to finally be able to say, all right, someone else can get in this. They want to create a sport, so they want to create like a bunch of them that are a bit smaller and have like teams. That's the ideal like vision.
Teams to race or teams to fight?
Teams to race like obstacles.
just bought a new whip. Spend a couple thousand just to cruise it. Shawty said she love me, but I swear she'll never prove it. I never tell her, but I put it in the music. Well, that's okay. All I wanna do is make the best of my whole day. Thank the Lord up above, get the cream on the side, make you laugh to no end. That's the stuff that I love.
Bridge.
Yep.
6 points. You got 16 points this hole.
Get it.
Oh, please get up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like that?
What?
Almost.
Club selection tip from your new friend Blaine.
Yeah.
Hey, was it a 9?
It was a 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, went for a 9.
Well, I'm not even gonna bring my putter. A natty bird.
Nice.
Too good. I'm gonna take the rest of the evening off. Do you consume alcoholic beverages?
I do.
Okay, because I got a birdie flask, and we need some birdie juice.
All right.
Full disclaimer: the flask has been in my bag all season, and
So it definitely has some germs on it.
no, I'm COVID friendly. I got little cups. Wait till you see this. I got little cups.
Then you mean it's been aged in your bag also?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that then. Either way, germs are also fine.
Germs.
That's how you build an immunity.
I like that. You know, I used to think that whenever there's like those like water features, I used to like lick them or like drink out of fountains and stuff, just like
Just to be sure.
challenge your
Yeah, a
immune
little bit of
system.
tolerance.
Yeah. Kind of said something that is like another thing we have in common. Like, we like humans. We like talking to humans. We're humans that like talking to humans.
Yeah.
And then I think I can't remember through like which engagement or event it was, but you were talking about how you're a fan and believer of like tools in the toolbox.
Yeah.
And adding tools in the toolbox.
Yeah.
Not just for sport, but more for like health and life.
Yeah, for like
in general.
as a human being.
So if you were to point someone in the right direction, if there's like 3 tools or skills or ideas that have benefited you that you think can transition to other people, you have anything that you could steer the ship?
Steer the ship. Kind of alluded to it before, but like first one that comes to mind is just self-care. Like paying attention to what that means. And I don't mean just like massages and baths. Like
Pepper, I'm a huge bath fan.
Me too, but also just like figuring out what that is. Because for some people it's like super simple things. Because you do stuff for self-care all the time. And I don't think we're still paying enough attention to it. And when you get in a situation where you're really, really uniquely obsessed with something, like you really want it, like whether it was for sport or whatever, I lost all my hobbies. Like I stopped. I used to have to lie in interviews about what I like to do for fun.
Oh no.
Because I didn't have anything else I did anymore.
It was just sport.
It was just sport. So that self-care piece of like figuring out what that is, that's super important. Secondarily, I would say figure out your style of communication and be able to explain that to people in your life. And I say that because it's so important, whether it's like relationships or friendships. I think that's a big one because it's been like a big piece of my life. And yeah, you like talking and that's fine, but like pay attention to how you communicate to people, maybe a little closer. I think that gets overlooked, and we think very much like, oh, well, that's the way I am. That's my least favorite thing when people say that. Well, that's just the way I am. Well, doesn't mean that's the way you have to be forever. Like, there's I could say that too, and I'd just be a, it doesn't mean, or at least learn or understand why you're that way.
Nobody wants.
You can't step to my throne. They ain't working like me. I did this on my own. You asking where we been, huh? I don't know where to begin, huh? All this dirt on my skin. I just came here to win. I'm more than a man, I'm a monster. Somebody call a pastor, doctor. I got a 6th sense for imposters. So now I'm coming for the whole roster. It's not a game, why you playing with me? You could double back, lose track, try and hang with me. It must be in my veins, something you can't tame. Cause I break the chains, can't control me. I got the power, I got the keys. Cause I break the chains, they try to hold me.
Yeah, I've heard different versions of your first piece before. Like, there's been a few, like, I think there's one fighter, I think it was Dominic Cruz that was talking about it, and he's saying talking about how he's able to deal with the ups and downs of a professional career is because he knows how to love himself.
Yeah.
And that was almost like profound.
And I think
it's very easy to tell a story in golf at the same time.
It's not.
We'll go to mine. But yeah, so he's like, and that was like, he's in like a egotistical masculine environment, and for him to have that wherewithal, to have that mindset was very surprising for me. Yeah,
and I didn't really like realize how much my personality had been affected through high level sport too. And I think anything, like, you grow and you change, but there was just this level of like obsession and desire to win, and like who you had to become to be the best.
Yeah.
That I would argue, if everyone was really honest with themselves, like, you don't necessarily become the best version of yourself through that. Especially not in a sport like skeleton or anything that's very individual. Like, sure, there's a team, but we raced each other, and there were only ever 3 women's spots on the World Cup team. So,
okay.
You know, at every interval of every opportunity, we were pitted against each other, and it meant that friendships that seemed like friendships were very rarely real friendships anymore, because you forgot how to be people. Did
you know that might happen going into it?
Yeah. I started when I was 25, so that's not to say like there wasn't some naivete about the whole thing, but I wasn't a teenager, so I wasn't like looking for a new experience that was for that was just for friendship. I did want that. I'm a very like social person, and I love the whole like family orientation, and I'm the only child, and I'm always like looking for other families to like be in. Like, I love that. But the reality set in really quickly when I realized how fast I wanted to get really good, and what that might cost in terms of other people's like perceptions of you.
If I take you down, would you really hold me down and be your best friend? She just wanna hit me with a quickie by the pool, and I'm like, yes, ma'am. When you got me feeling for your body, you might turn me to a yes, man. Oh yeah. 80 and I'm 40, I'm a nervous bitch, I'm flyer than your ex, man. We ain't gotta go outside. 2-step in the rain. Wake up by my side. Don't care what you think. Oh, you just my type. Oh yeah, she know the deal like an old scripting. You ain't the first to really sell that shit. Champagne with the roof gone. Bump this jam back in Tucson. Think I got to get a move on. Never had much to lose, but you could do better with me in the middle of the road, or the back of the Jeep. So baby, let's not talk about it. But I gotta know if I take it.
Go get it.
Where we go?
Away we go.
Specific like goals and targets and ideas of like your MO, like this is me and this is where I feel like I can most help people, or does that come out organically in the conversation?
Usually in the conversation. So like if they're interested in having me come and talk to a group or whatever, I try and figure out what their goal for that team or group of people is, and like how I can craft a story from my experience to speak to that.
Okay.
If they have no idea, then I will come to them with like, all right, well, here are some topics that I can touch on.
Right.
I do try really hard not to just have them very generic. Like, I speak about teamwork. I speak about, because I get it. Like, some people are experts in the field, but I also don't want to just be pigeonholed by the fact that I did a sport for 8 years. I have a lot of other experiences and things that, you know, come to the front of mind to say like, well, here's what I can tell you, and I like to be really raw in my talks too, like not just everything's great and trying to be an Olympic athlete is easy and you can do it too. It's the otherness that I try and break. So people imagine it's like so impossible to see themselves as what I did or what any like high level athlete did, and it's not. It's exactly the same to try and be the best at anything. It's just on camera. Like what we go through and how we experience that looks a lot more great because we get to wear Canada on our back. It's not any different for the mind or for the body than it is if you were trying to be like the best in your career or the best, because it takes over your life. And maybe you didn't need to go to the gym for 6 hours a day to do your thing, but you did have to do 12 hours a day of something else, like, and you sacrificed relationships and money and your mind to get there.
Right.
But nobody thought that was glorious and sexy because you didn't do it for your country.
Yeah, and nobody saw.
I don't know. I think that work-life balance is BS. That's not a real thing. I think there's just figuring out what in your life makes you happy and doing more of that. Because some people like doing their job lots makes them really happy, but that you have to figure out, like, then they quit trying to check boxes. Like, there isn't this linear path from A to B to C to D, E to death. Like, that doesn't have to be like that. Some people, that's how they want to live. Cool. But if you find yourself like in a situation being like, well, I don't want to do this anymore. Well, okay, then don't do that.